everyone, and welcome back to my studying. Here we are back with next bunch of A Wheel of Time chapters, chapters 20 to 30 to be precise. But before we begin, I would like to thank Jocelyn and Ethan for their continued Patreon support. Thank you kindly. And I would also invite everyone who watches these videos, if you don't mind, please do like, share, and subscribe, all the good stuff. Now that's out of the way, let us begin with a recap. Back when we left Rand, he was in Ilion, and Ilion is suffering some harsh winter storms. It's kind of a reverse of a previous situation with an uncomfortable heat. Now it's just a blitz. So Rand summons a few of the Asherman. They appear quickly, and one of the Asherman guys, a fellow named Charles, I do hope that's how we pronounce his name, also a fellow that I don't recognize, so he must be a new addition. He is the leader of the small squad that's summoned, and he has some trouble processing the orders Rand is giving to him. But Rand, in his Rand fashion, doesn't want to give detailed explanation. And all of that is happening while Louis Theron is being Louis Theron in his head, shouting about killing everyone and everything around him. So Asherman arrive, and Rand's plan now is to make another push at Shanshan towards the west. So they do that. He moves his camp closer to Ilion and starts to arrange forces that he has gathered. He is met with some bepuzzled comments from the local nobility, like Lord Veyraman, but his puzzlement comes from the fact that the people Rand chooses to keep the closest to his camp, to his place of lodging, are the ones that he should trust the least, but that's by design. I mean, it's the old saying, keep your enemies closer. Keep your friends close and keep your enemies even closer, so that you can keep them on your guard. Oh, I need to wet my whistle with some carrot juice, because that's a real men's drink. Just seriously though, I do love carrot juice. So where were we? Right. So what Rand does, he makes a small regiment. Can we call it a regiment? How big can a regiment be? So he picks up 1,000 men of the Legion of the Dragon, and then he awaits the return of Narishma. So in the meantime, he's trying to puzzle the situation that's been happening in Tyr, in Karen, in Endor, in Ilion, of course, and the schism of the tower and so forth. So Narishma returns with an item that Rand has requested. He also gives some strange attitude to Rand, and because the guy is telling him that it almost cost him his life and la-di-da, yeah, a strange encounter. So what Rand does next is he tells Dashiva to create a gateway to the old Silver Road, and he does that because there has been some sort of a change in Saidin. Rand is feeling much less content and confident in seizing Saidin. Something is wrong with Saidin, and we'll see more of that later. So he relocates this small army that he has collected, and he also summoned some smaller regiments from Tyr and Karen and Endor. So all these small groups, they travel via gateway to meet with him, and last one of them to arrive is a group led by one and only Davram Bashir, apparently a man that Rand actually trusts to some extent. So he asks Rand for an explanation what you're up to. These are considerably smaller forces than we actually have. Rand replies something flashy to the manner of if someone has to pay the butcher's bill, it might as well be those who want him dead. Which is a very colorful saying. And Bashir agrees, but has some reservations about the whole thing, but goes with it. So they clash with the Shonchan, and while they're clashing with the Shonchan, Rand almost dies. And he doesn't react on time because Saidin is feeling weird, and even the Ashaman around him are commenting that something is wrong with the source. So they do win the battle though, and Rand decides to push to Abu Dar and try to conquer it, despite reservations from, again, Bashir, who thinks that there are times when you need to press your luck and get something over with, and there are times when you fight a battle and you count your winnings and you go home. But Rand insists that they go and try to conquer Abu Dar. So back to Abu Dar, we have a Surath, a Lady Surath with many titles. She is the Lady of Shonchan, and she starts giving orders to her servants, and one of the orders she gives is to destroy every Ashaman that they can find. More than that, she apparently knows just how many numbers are in the Rand's army. And she also knows, to the strange reaction of her servants, that they are using the ancient way of traveling, which is apparently a myth, a legend in her culture, which I suppose is also a myth and was a myth in the non-Shonchan culture for many, many years and decades and centuries, but here we are. So they clash because Rand pushes to Abu Dar, and the battle continues, and Rand is having difficulties to seize the Saidin. So what he does is he wields Kalandor, and it's a sword that's not a sword, and by wielding the sword that's not a sword, he kills a lot of people. And I do mean people, because he kills both enemies and his troops as well. And then he orders a retreat. It's kind of not even a Pyrrhic victory, I would say. It's the other side suffered a lot of losses as well, but so did Rand's small army. So it's kind of, I don't know if I would call it a pointless battle, because I do think that outwardly there are some things that happened in it that maybe taught Rand a lesson, hopefully. But as far as a summary of who did what and how much did we achieve? Not much. So that's as far as Shanshan goes. What happens next is we are back to Elida. And Elida is having some troubles in paradise, but she's been having those for quite a while now. I would even say that she had these troubles from the very beginning when she deposed the former Emerlin, Siwan Sanche. As a side note, Robert Jordan has this weird fascination with Aes Sedai sisters that all have names starting with S. Or maybe he just likes the letter S and names starting with S. I mean, my name starts with S. The name of this channel also starts with S. So who am I to say? But yeah, there's so many. So I don't know if it's a running joke in the fandom, but it seems like it should be. So back to Elida. She has 6 sitters in her study, and all of the sitters are from each of the Ajas respectively. And they all are trying to push their own agenda, their own Aja agenda, and she's not paying much attention to them. She is feeling a bit confident, but not for long, about finally feeling that she is now having full grasp on everything in the Black Tower, and she thinks that the disaster with Ren's kidnapping has been averted, or at least pushed aside sufficiently that she can now breathe more easily. And she even underlines that thought with a reminder to the sitters that they all have decrees that she has given them, and they need to implement those decrees. But her feeling of being high and mighty doesn't last long, because Alviaren, who is totally a Black Aja and totally huge dark friend, shows up and appears, and she goes through the Elida's decrees and just poops on them. And there are many decrees that Elida wants to make, and Alviaren is having none of it. And she is not even vetoing. It's like a small child saying to. It's like a parent saying to a small child, "No, you can't have this candy," and no, because Alviaren is the absolute boss of Elida in many ways. So Elida is super bummed because Alviaren actually disappeared for a while, so to the point where Elida was reminiscing hopefully that Alviaren is dead. And even she is again spinning the foretelling she had in her head about her triumph. But as far as the reality goes, she has virtually no choice, and she has to listen to everything Alviaren tells her to do. And she also still harbors hope that she one very close day, she will have enough rope to hang Alviaren with, but that day has still not come. So what Alviaren does next is she insists that Elida signs a decree. And I used to think that Elida is smart-ish, intelligent at least, but her apparent inability to piece things together, or even to be a judge of character, is starting to paint a different picture, because Alviaren is giving a bunch of decrees that she drafted herself, and expects Elida to implement, but when Elida is examining those degrees, she can't make heads or tails of that. So that's sad. But in a funny kind of a parallel of a situation, well, I wouldn't say it's a parallel. It's just it's a display of even a boss has a boss of their own. So the sitters, they all had to obey Alviarin. Alviarin has to the sitters all have to obey Elida. Elida has to obey Alviarin, and then when Alviarin goes to her room, she is just kissing the boots of Misana, the Forsaken. And that's about that. I mean, yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot something. I forgot to mention something. Yeah, the most important thing is Elida gets just a beating. She's beaten. There's a lot of beating actually in plenty of beating in these last 10 chapters, but in a feat of I don't know, power sadism, Alviarin calls for Mistress of the Novices of all people to apply some private penance, which is sort of a, from what I understand, it's the whole point of discipline in the White Tower is everyone has to see that you messed up, and you need to make your penance, whether it's working in the kitchens or whatever it is. But the mistress just wallops Elida's bottom, and Elida falls asleep tearing up, which is I'm not feeling sorry for her. It's just it's a scene and a half. So back when Alviarin is talking to Misana is kind of objecting to the beating that Alviarin delivered to Elida, and Alviarin's argument is, well, she was starting to feel too full of herself, her head is getting too big, so I had to take her down a bit. Yeah, that's that. And there seems to be some friction as well between Alviarin and Misana. It's like Alviarin is very ambitious and doesn't tell everything to Misana. But that's that. Then we have the situation still in the tower, where the sisters that have been ordered to root out Black Aja by Elida, they question one of the sisters named Zera. And at the beginning they think that she's a Black sister, which I also thought when that chapter started, but it turns out she's a spy for Salidar, and the way they root it out is by an oath rod. So poor woman keeps taking and retaking oaths. And the scene is interrupted. So two sisters, Sain and Pevara, again S sisters, they find out that Zera is a spy, and while they're all doing this, Seren, another S sister, Talin and Dosine, and another one starting with T, I think. They barge in and see what they're doing, and all of them, it's kind of a funny scene, they all take and retake back and forth their oaths. Except for Talin, yeah, that's the one with T, but who's, I think, totally a Black Aja. But back to out of the tower, we have sisters. We have sisters, and one of them is Tavain. And it's kind of a situation where Ashaman ambush a bunch of Aes Sedai, and Logain smooches one of them, called Tavain, and bonds her. Apparently that's the only way he can do that, which is weird. But yeah, it's a small but puzzling scene. So back to Rand. Rand is back at the Sun Palace, and in another episode of Who's Getting Their Bottom Whooped, Rand is by the three maidens who represent the anger of the Spear Sisters, because he went on with his small army and fought battles without them, which is another strange scene, honestly. And unlike the one with Elida, served, I think at least, very little purpose, but I'll explain my stance on that later. So, what's next? So, when was Rand, well, before Rand was getting whooping by the sisters, he wanted to summon Katsuane because Min had a vision of Katsuane teaching him something very important that will help with the last battle and everything, with a good fight. So Katsuane arrives, and well, no, actually she doesn't arrive. It's the reverse. Rand has to visit her instead. And they kind of go back and forth, but they do reach some kind of an agreement. And she instructs him that Kalendor, such as it is, can only be safely and effectively wielded if there is a male channeler, i.e. him, and he is linked with two women who are guiding the flows. So there is that. Cut back to Elaine. One of the kin, two of the kin actually, Adelas and Ispan, are horribly, graphically murdered by someone, evidently someone from the group. That's kind of what all the evidences are pointing to. Lan notices the scene and he calls it for naive and others. So Elaine's group, they march on and they reach Gamelin, and there they have a serious discussion on how Elaine will take and ascend the Lion Throne. And also we have a scene of a dark friend, which I don't remember if he's a new one, if he was mentioned somewhere on the very early travels by Rand and Matt. He's called David. I don't think he is, but maybe he's a similar name to someone else. But he's apparently a dark friend. He also arrives in Camelin, and that's a scene. It's a sort of a POV paragraph, so I'm sure it's significant in some way. So next we have Min and Rand having an argument. Min wants to convince Rand to go to Camelin and see Elaine, and yeah. I think one of the young Ashaman Fedwin is acting strangely, but Min is still having some arguments with Rand because Rand wants to sort of push Elaine away romantically, because he has an impression that she doesn't want to see him in Camelin. I don't understand why, but Rand and women it's another tale entirely. So Min wants to deliver her own button whooping herself, but then Sorila barges in. And she brings in a bunch of Aes Sedai, and these are Aes Sedai who were captured when Rand was being kidnapped. So they've been under the tender care of the wise ones for a while now, and apparently they're now ready to serve him. And Rand asks each and every one to explain themselves, not why they kidnapped him, we know this by now, but why do they want to serve him, and each of them has an answer of their own. And whatever that may be, Rand accepts those answers, and as long as they swear fealty like other sisters did and submitted themselves, they will join the others. So they do. Yeah, that's about it, or at least it would be before the throne room explodes. Rand is on its way to visit Katsuane again, because he's still puzzled by her, so am I, to be honest. And kaboom, kablam. He just briefly avoids the worst. And as soon as the explosion happens, he sees the source, and because he feels channeling from different sides. And at first he thinks that these are Forsaken that are trying to attack him, but apparently it's Ashaman, Rogue Ashaman. Not sure. Maybe Dashiva. It's a strange scene. So let's go bit by bit, right? Rand is a bit blinded, so he uses, well, not really blinded. He wants to be as invisible as possible. So he uses folded light, which is a new weave, I guess. He just made, and he notices that some of the people that channeled when the explosion happened might have been Ashaman, so he thinks now that there are a rogue Ashaman as well. So he runs into Narishma and he almost kills him because he saw him channel. And part of the Ashaman are confused and just wants everyone to chill, but Rand agrees, but he doesn't stop his search and investigation, and he doesn't find the three Ashaman he felt that tried to kill him. Unfortunately, the young Ashaman that was loyal to Rand, well, now we know that he was loyal because he was a collector of damage. A fellow named Moore, he is alive, but his mind is gone. He is reduced to a child. And so what happens next is Time is summoned to Rand, and he reports that very conveniently a group of Ashaman have become deserters. And they have become deserters on their expeditions against the Shon child in Altara. And that's very convenient because Time is really hamming it up as a villain right now. So I'm pretty sure that's just a convenient excuse. Because immediately, as if that fact itself, hours after the attack, wasn't suspicious enough, he immediately offers to take care of this problem for Rand immediately. Which is strange. Yeah. Well, also something very significant happens. So first, Rand offers orders to add Dashiva to the list of traitors, and he orders for all of the traitors to be captured and killed. But before that, there is this very powerful scene where where I'm not sure what the stance of the fandom is, or even if it's controversial or not. Maybe it is controversial in modern days through non-fantasy eyes, but Rand gives drugged wine, poisoned wine to Moore in order to give him a quick, merciful death. And Tame remarks that, "Oh, Rand, you're so strong, I did not accept you as hard as you are." That's beside the point. What is the point is more. I understand that they live in a harsh environment and in a harsh times even, and they don't have the facilities that we have for the ones that have severe mental or developmental problems. But to euthanize someone whose mind is gone, but physically they're still living and breathing, I'm not too sure. That was kind of dark, really dark. I'm not too sure what's the consensus on that. But I do have my own opinion, and my opinion is I don't feel that this was necessary, but maybe RJ was trying to display how much Rand's heart has hardened. But I never felt so far that Rand was unjust. I'm not sure he was just in this instance. But do comment in the description, please, in the comments below, please. And the last part, but not the least part, that happens in this book is something very important, very significant. Two things happen. Perrin meets Massima, the self-proclaimed prophet of the Dragon Reborn, and gets him to get back to the Rand, because that were his orders. He needs to return and have a chat with Rand. And of course, he's making everything difficult because he refuses to travel to go there via traveling or via the ways of power, and he wants to go there old school by foot. So they do. But back to Fail and a bunch of spear maidens like Chiad and Bane, they're all kidnapped by Shaido because Savannah has given an order where they need to become Daishine of hers. And that's a big thing to drop at the end of the book. And of course, there's this last thing where Egwene's army moves to Tarvalon, but that was expected because we've spent so much planning and talking through this that wasn't unexpected. So that's as far as the recap goes. Let's move on to questions. Question number one: why was Rand feeling so sickly while he was drawing on the swords? Was it a situation where the sort of the boar was closer, or the influence of the Dark One was stronger? I don't know. I didn't get that impression. Or maybe something happened in the past that wounded the source there. I mean, the source isn't alive, Saidin isn't alive. Maybe what if it is? What if the source is alive? I don't know. Rand is... my other question is... Rand's pondering about Saidin. Same subject. He is talking about potentially cleansing Saidin. And I'm assuming that's just connected to his current state where he is unable to draw reliably on the source. Is this something that can be done? I know I asked this before, but does one kind of cause the other? Is his madness directly connected to Saidin? Can the fixing of Saidin remove the madness of male channelers? Or maybe he's doomed to become mad, but maybe others after him will not go mad while channel. Food for thought. And the next question is about Logain. So it's never outright explicitly said, which I like. It wasn't in your face. But what Logain did felt like bonding. And here we have a reverse of Alana's situation with Rand. It wasn't strange to me that someone would have a female warder. We have Brigitte. It is a sort of a reversal where there's a male channeler who has a male ward who has a warder who is a female channeler. We didn't have that combination before. That's fine. But he still did that without consent. Just like Alana did to Rand. And he did this by forcibly kissing the Aes Sedai. He did this too, which makes it double gross a bit. I'm not into that. I mean, I guess I just thought that Logain was this noble character. Well, that's putting it maybe lightly, but I did think that he was not a terrible person necessarily. But let's move on. Is Dashiva a rogue agent, a Forsaken in disguise, or acting on Time's orders? I mean, all three could be true, right? He could be acting on Tame's orders because Tame is a dark friend, and he could also be a Forsaken who is pretending to follow Tame's orders because he wants to infiltrate Rand's side. All three could be true. Let's move on to things that I liked, and there were quite a few. I like that Tame continues to be delightfully slippery, like not fully mustache twirling, but close enough. At this point, I am convinced that his ambition rules him above everything else, above any perceived allegiance he may owe to Rand. I do think there was this, when they first met and he submitted himself to Rand, there was this moment, very, very brief moment, of fake empathy or real empathy where Tame did feel solidarity with Rand and told him to hold on to his sanity. But now, not a thing. But let's move on. Next thing that I really enjoyed was the description of Illianer mentality. When the noble people of Illian were pondering and bickering and scheming, it was a very enjoyable time. It was a very enjoyable part of the book to read. How they think, how their culture informs their beliefs and so forth. It was just very engaging. And again, with things that were engaging about different cultures, I really like Kenar, and I liked his observations about Shan-Chan culture and the fact that we find out that there are different prophecies of the dragon, very different prophecies of the dragon in his homeland, and how that may shape them and how the other prophecies of the dragon has shaped the Wetlanders. I also liked Dashiva's no plan of battle survives first contact. It's sort of a variation of the theme, no plan survives the first contact with the enemy, which is kind of a universal thing. Universal saying, but still applies, especially here. And a very minor thing, Talene. She's totally a Black Haja, dark friend, we know that. But she mentions pillow friends. Whether she mentions it as a real thing in that instance with those sisters, or just a distraction in that conversation, Are pillow friends what I think they are? Is that sort of a euphemism for same-sex relationships within the tower? Because if it is, it's totally cool. I mean, to be honest, I never expected Robert Jordan to include LGBT characters in his writing, not because I think he was against it, but he started publishing a long time ago, and the publishing in those times was not as LGBT friendly as it is today. So that's nice to read, if that's the case. I kind of read it as text and subtext, but please do correct me if I'm wrong. I'm curious to what the fandom consensus on that is. I don't think that would be a spoiler if you answer that. And let's move on to things that I didn't like. Well, honestly, I don't think that Masima's subplot went where I wanted it to go. I expected that his character would just fade away, or he would be dealt with. And narratively, I think we have so many factions, which is a good thing, because it gives this dimension of a dynamic, evolving situation and the world. But we already have enough fanatics and radicals, and I don't think Massimo quite fits in. Not a fan. And the second thing that I didn't like was the Rand getting beaten by the sisters. Not because I felt sorry for Rand, I didn't. But because I feel that Robert Jordan has used every passing opportunity to convey the harshness and the pragmaticism of Aiel culture. I already know that they would do something like that. I expect it even. And when I'm told something enough times, I expect it. And when it's still being said, and I expect it, I see very little point in that scene, to be honest. Not a huge minus, but still. Something that I would have personally edited out. And that's it for today. I'll be reviewing the book fully, as it is, with my expectations for the next book, because I do have some stronger expectations in terms of where it may go. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you're having a nice time. I hope you're all doing fine. And meet me next time on my channel. Bye-bye. Right, Tara? She's falling asleep. And I'm back on my carrot juice. Not sponsored by cheap carrot juice, by the way.